Hello, everyone. Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me as ever, it's Alasdair Gold. Good weekend.
Yeah. It's one of those interesting ones where we're working across weekends without matches, which is never our favourite thing to do in the world. But we little bits and pieces with the return of pre-season training was something. We're still awaiting some transfers. That would be nice. But otherwise, yeah, all right. I hope you had a good one too.
Yeah, less than 2 weeks now until Thomas Frank's first game as Tottenham head coach. That's against Reading at the Select Car Leasing Stadium. But Saturday just gone, we've seen a number of the Tottenham players return to Hotspur Way for the start of pre-season training. As ever, first day back, it's mainly just spent with the sports science staff going through a number of tests, but not everyone was back at Hotspur Way. Again, it's a staggered return like usual because there's been a number of players playing international football. This summer, a few are going to be a bit later, the likes of Matisse Tell, Wilson Odebear, Archie Gray, Mikey Moore. They've been playing tournament football until the end of June, so they'll have slightly longer, but still there was a decent amount of first team players back. I'll go through them now. There was Guglielmo Vicario, Antonin Kinski, Brandon Austin, Jed Spence, Dane Scarlett, Dominic Solanke, Radu Dragosin, Lucas Bergval, Dejan Kulusevski. Then a number of loanees also returned: Yang-Min Hyuk, Jamie Donnelly, Will Lancashire, Ashley Phillips, Josh Keeley, George Abbott, Alejo Belize, Brian Hill, Alfie Devine, and Luka Vuskovic. I think Luka Vuskovic was certainly the one all Tottenham fans were looking out for first day back.
What was it you said to me about him just before we started recording this pod?
He's a big lad, isn't he? You could see in the video what Spurs put out.
Yeah.
He's a unit, and as I mentioned to you, he's only 18 years old, so he's still growing. So he's definitely going to be, a big presence at the back.
Yeah, it's just mad, isn't it? It's just incredible for someone that only turned 18 not that long ago. He looks physically a Premier League player, doesn't he? He looks like he'll be able to handle it. And I'm really fascinated to see I think they're starting on the grass from today, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Certainly, if not today, tomorrow. But yeah, they'll be out there on the grass. Those early days are always very much kind of blood work. Sports science staff, you see them in the gym. They have to do all these little exercises and things. There's one where they're I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but it looks kind of like they're on the toilet where they're kind of sitting on this thing and they have to push up with their thighs, don't they? And the faces they make look like they are straining rather too much on the toilet. But it looks like I've never seen that in a gym in my life, that machine, whatever they're using. Maybe I'm just going to the wrong gyms, but
I think that's the one Jed said he broke it. Is that powerful?
Yes, he did. Yes. Yeah, it looks incredibly hard to use, whatever they're having to do with it. But yeah, there's loads of players back, probably more than I actually expected on that kind of first day, because I feel like, some of those, maybe there were a few internationals in there that maybe we didn't expect, because the internationals do have more time off. I suppose you could say Vicario didn't really play, did he, for Italy, out of memory? And then who else was the other one that surprised me? Oh, Jamie Donnelly. Jamie Donnelly had Northern Ireland kind of pitch time as well after the end of the season. So, yeah, there were a few there. And Josh Keeley obviously was away with the Republic of Ireland in his first senior call-up as well. But hey, it's a new manager. Everyone wants to get in, don't they? They want to make a good impression. Looked like he was in the house, Thomas Frank, wasn't he? Obviously, while they weren't doing training stuff yet with him, there were probably no doubt having a couple of chats with him, introducing himself to them as well. It's just such a key period, isn't it? I know we do this every 2 years or so, but it is a key period for the players to meet the new coach and figure out kind of what's coming next. I'd be surprised if there are any real in-depth discussions yet. I mean, maybe someone like Vicario would have a bit more of a chat with him. We'll find out, obviously, in the days ahead. Solanke, he seems to kind of really like, doesn't he, Thomas Frank? So I'd imagine that would have been made very clear to him early doors that he's going to be a big part of this season ahead. But yeah, for those young players, it's such a big chance for them now to kind of catch his eye out on the training pitches. From what I understand, I think there's a case that the squad's so big now, with everyone kind of coming back, that I think some of the like under 21 players are having to very much, although they'll be training with the first team, still using the under 21s like dressing room and stuff like that, because it's just there's so many people to try and fit into the building right now, which I think we sometimes forget just how huge that squad is once all the loan players are kind of assimilated back into it again. But yeah, it's you can see some of the coaching staff as well, couldn't you? Just certainly one or two, I think I spotted in the background of that video.
Yeah, there was only a brief clip of Thomas Frank. Literally, a second or two. Was it Andreas Georgeson?
Yes.
Who's part of his team? He was in conversation with him. But yeah, just going back in terms of the players and the under 21s, you can tell who's classed as first team, who's classed as under 21 just by looking at the training kit, because some have the sponsors on, some don't. But I think it's probably just a good period for those who are now back at Hotspur Way, you know, to get to know Thomas Frank, try and make an impression, because as you said, when everyone comes back, there's going to be like 30 people there, and that makes it harder for the manager himself to have individual chats with everyone. So it is a bit of a crucial period there right now.
Yeah, 100%. I think he'll address the group at some point, but it kind of doesn't feel like the right time to do that yet, does it? I would imagine. Unless it's so weird, isn't it? It's kind of you're at this period where it's just waiting for stuff to kind of filter out, whether that comes through the club, whether it comes from unofficial channels around people around the players and everything. But you know, little things like, did he stand up in the canteen and say hello to everyone? Things like little things like that we don't really know about yet, which will all kind of come out just because we know he's a really good communicator. We know he's a really bubbly, positive kind of guy. It's a really good presence around a training ground. Everyone at Brentford used to say that. So, but he'll also be finding his bearings as well. It'd be fascinating to know when we get to speak to him. I think we've got potentially a press conference next week, maybe, whether there's any nerves for him. You know, it's a big kind of step up in terms of the facilities that he's using, and obviously the expectations as well, whether he got any nerves at all. Yeah, I'm really interested to see what happens with them. Quite like the new training kit. It's got a good look to it. It works for me. Not that I'll be wearing it anytime soon, but yeah, that and the new black away kit, which I really like. I saw someone out walking their dog nearby. So it was the kind of first time I've actually seen it on someone in the flesh. It looked really good. It looked really good. It's just a shame.
The Europa League tracksuit's on sale as well now on the club shop. I noticed that because I wanted to have a look at the training top for the actual colour of it.
Yeah.
Whether it was white, silver, grey, whatever. But yeah, that's on sale now. 90 quid for the tracksuit bottoms.
Did you buy it off like Klarna or something where you pay a bit every month or so?
No, just going back to the players who were there and those who weren't. The ones who were absent, who weren't spotted in the video, the international players: No Kemi Danzo, Sonny, Ibasuma, Richarlison, Destiny Doggy, Cristian Romero, Brennan Johnson, Pedro Porro, Mana Solomon, Pat Matassar, Rodrigo Bentaker, Ben Davis, Mickey van der Ven, Matisse Tell, Archie Gray, Wilson Odebert, and Mikey Moore. No sign of James Maddison there as well, even though he wasn't in the England squad in June, but he has been back at Hotspur Way during the summer, given he's been injured, because there was that clip of him in the gym when Thomas Frank was there, providing an update on his fitness. And Pedro Porro was actually back on Friday, earlier than expected, because he uploaded a photo on his Instagram account in the gym, putting in the work.
I mean, he was certainly back in the gym. That's what I would say. I wonder whether he's come back early and used the gym, because he wasn't in any of the stuff from Saturday, I noticed. So that could just be him being the absolute machine that he is and coming back and using their gym. I guess if you've got a gym and you live nearby, which maybe he does, maybe you just go and use that instead. But yeah, I saw Brennan Johnson seems to be like in the water in Copenhagen or something. I think he's still very much enjoying his holidays. Yeah, I think a few of them could still be off for a chunk of this week, really. That's certainly what I'm kind of hearing. I think, like we said earlier, they'll be coming back in stages, and people have different programs. And like Madison's rehab program could just be different. I mean, like we saw him and Dragoshin together when Frank had his first kind of look around the training ground. But at that point, Kulusevski was off away. I think that was when he was on his honeymoon or just before that or something. So it may be that I think Maddison was at Wimbledon at the weekend. It probably sounds like we're stalking people, but it is kind of our job. We kind of see these players pop up in our feeds on whatever we're following everyone on. Yeah. So they'll have different rehab programs. They'll have different times they're in. It's now about that group getting out there on the grass, just as it's going to get hot again as well. It's going to get up to those 30-degree temperatures. They're going to be out pushing themselves, trying to get their fitness levels up and ready. And we saw, we're kind of going to see, I think, a lot of the new coaches as well. It's going to be a very interesting new look coaching team as well, isn't it?
Yeah, you reported on that yesterday on the football.london website. I think one of the notable, key moves, Stuart Lewis moving up from the under-18s, Matty Wells keeping his place in there as well, Rob Birch, goalkeeping coach, looking to be on his way from the club.
Yeah, it's really interesting what they're doing, because I think the key in constructing this staff was not only to get like some really highly rated kind of young coaches in there as well, but also, and I think this is the kind of guy Thomas Frank is. Obviously, he's a very clever chap, that he'll be well aware that there are gaps in his experience, and there are, in his coaching experience, despite the fact that he has been a coach for, a long time now, various levels, whether it's in the Danish FA or Brøndby, or before that as well in Denmark, or obviously at Brentford. He doesn't, as we said before, have the experience of European football, juggling a 60-game season, stuff like that. So I don't think it's any coincidence that you've got coaches coming in that have worked at Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool, and obviously Matty Wells, who very much last season was having to work out how you do training sessions and make decisions based on the fact that there's a match every 3 days. I think there's a lot of experience he's bringing in there. And look, Matthew Wells, very, very highly rated young coach. Justin Cochran, who's coming in as one of Frank's right-hand men, he and Matthew Wells have known each other for years, really good friends, great mutual respect, worked together in Spurs Academy, so they'll know each other inside out. They'll complement each other really nicely. I'd be stunned if Matthew Wells is not the next off the block in terms of becomes a manager in the Football League. I think he'll follow in the footsteps of Chris Davis, Ryan Mason, those guys in heading off. But for now, absolutely utilize him. His sessions are meant to be really good. He's a very good communicator. Even as recently as the documentary about the Europa League win, we saw that with they kept using him for the interviews. So that's good. Stuart Lewis, we've reported on him in recent seasons. Under 18s, he's done a brilliant job. 3 trophies in as many seasons, developed a lot of the players that we've seen making their debut for Spurs in the last couple of seasons under Postecoglou. So he's done a great job. So delighted, really, that there's this pathway at Spurs for coaches. We talk about wanting to see young players come through, but sometimes when it comes to coaches, we're a bit like, oh, we want that exciting, shiny thing on the outside, and forget that there's very good young coaches coming through at the club. I think sometimes it's like, if they're not a big name like a former player, maybe they get a bit overlooked, whereas actually, Stuart Lewis is going to come in, and I'm actually gutted with myself that I'm not someone that regularly checks the Spurs job adverts. But if I had earlier in the week, they put out an advert for a lead under-18s coach. It was there. It was clear that he was going to become part of his coaching staff. I mean, we reported it a few weeks back that he was in consideration, and now we know he's going to be part of that staff, which I would imagine will be confirmed soon enough. I would imagine we'll find out either today or tomorrow, purely because you're going to have photos of them all doing the training sessions. Rob Birch going obviously is a shame, because he seemed to be quite a popular member of the staff and got on well to keepers, but they've bringing in someone with a lot of experience in Fabien Otte, who, if that's how you pronounce it, Otte, was at Liverpool last season, won the Premier League title with Arne Slot, left them at the end of the season. Before that was head of goalkeeping of the USA national team. Borussia Mönchengladbach as well. He was there for 3 years. I think he was at Hoffenheim as well. Again, we talk about clever guys. He's a doctor. He's got a PhD. He's studied for years, getting his bachelor's, master's, and PhD in Doctor of Philosophy. He is like sports psychology, everything. This is a very, very well experienced and clever guy coming in. Oh, I forgot to say Matty Wells as well. Matty Wells and Stuart Lewis, they're both Spurs through and through. That's nice to see in your own club. Matty Wells is the grandson of the double winning legend, Cliff Jones. This is what sometimes I see I think maybe if they don't like a previous manager, everyone in that coaching staff gets tainted by that. So I know there's some people that maybe didn't want Postecoglou to remain, who are like, oh, the whole era should be ripped up. No one should go. It doesn't work like that. If you've got a good coach working within your club, try to keep them. Absolutely. And I'm sure he'll do different stuff under Thomas Frank. He'll bring different skill sets to the overall kind of package. But yeah, I was just trying to think if we've missed anyone out. Obviously, we know the ones he was coming in with. It's Justin Cochran, Chris Haslam, who's very much going to be like a bit of a right-hand man as well as Justin Cochran. He's what is he? Head of performance / first team assistant coach. Joe Newton, the first team coach analyst as well. And like you said, Andreas Georgeson. I keep having people ask me, what about a set piece coach? That's your man. It's Georgeson. He's also is a coach in his own right and doing other stuff. He'll be able to do general coaching. But of course, he is also at various clubs, Brentford, United to begin with, Arsenal before that, has done set pieces, defensive and attacking. So that's where he'll be certainly helping out. I was trying to work out whether we'll get another surprise, if there'll be another coach. But that's actually quite a big coaching team. I would imagine that covers all angles that you'd want. Just really looking forward to seeing how they all complement each other in the season ahead.
Yeah, we'll get to see how they do on the pre-season tour coming up soon, Hong Kong and South Korea. I'm sure a lot of people will be using Saily when they're out there. Ali, you yourself are going to be using it. Do you want to tell everyone about the benefits of Saily?
That was such a good segue. I thought you were going to talk about the pre-season tour. I didn't even know you were going towards that. You masked that with a little shimmy, a little feint. That was very good. Yes. I'm really looking forward to the pre-season tour. We're going to both be in Hong Kong, aren't we? Because you're kind of helping out with some other aspects of work with football.london because of another team that are going to be out there. So we'll both be covering the game in Hong Kong, which is going to be interesting. So hopefully we'll have a Golden Guest Talk Tottenham from Hong Kong. We're going to try and plan to do that, a special Golden Guest Talk Tottenham on tour, quite literally. And we'll both, I'm sure, will be using Saily in order to save our company money with our various mobile demands that we'll have, which will be both in terms of data, I guess, as well, mainly because whenever we're on those trips, we're having to tether our laptops, do lots of work, tether to the internet. And what Saily does so well, it's an eSIM from NordVPN that just saves you loads of money off your normal roaming costs, which can be rather extortionate with certain mobile networks. But Saily brings that all down to a far more manageable amount. And yeah, it's a terrific product. I've used it many times over recent years, wherever I've been around the world, whether through work or holidays, and it's great. It really is. As well as, using NordVPN, it's another really helpful part of their whole service. And on top of all of that, not only are you saving money by using it, but because we're very kind people here at Golden Guest Talk Tottenham, you can download Saily, which is spelled Saily, in your app store, and our code Gold Guest at the checkout, if you use that, gets you an exclusive 15% off your first purchase. So it's very, very cheap for you. Or you can go online straight to saily.com/Gold Guest to get that same discount. For more information, go to our episode description box.
Let's talk transfers now then, because that is what all Tottenham fans want heading into the new season. In terms of outgoings, Cristian Romero has been linked with a move to Atletico Madrid. Reports coming from Spain today, a new bid from Atleti. I guess it's a case of will he go, won't he go?
Yeah. The word from in and around Spurs appears to be that they haven't received such a bid. So whether that is one that's being prepared or whether it's one of those where I often find there's this really grey area in football in terms of transfer window of people kind of saying that a bid has been made, but sometimes it's more, a discussion has been said, so like, so if we were to give you £5.80 and a packet of crisps kind of thing, would that do? Kind of thing. It's not really a bid, it's a suggestion. And I do wonder whether that's the case or not here, but certainly from the Spurs end of things, as of recording this, obviously, by the time this comes out later this afternoon, anything can change in the world of the transfer window. But as of right now, there doesn't appear to have been a new bid made for the player. Fascinated to see what happens with Romero, because for me, there's no desperate need for Spurs to sell, because I still think you could get a very decent fee next summer. Obviously, if there's an unhappy player, if he really wants to kick up a fuss and wants to go, then that kind of maybe changes things. But then do you want to be held by a club to someone doing that? I suppose then everyone could do that. I don't know. It's a funny thing, the transfer window, and what it does to people. I'm most fascinated probably to see when he comes back, and whether it is the exact time he's meant to come back. I'm sure he's a very professional man, and he will be back when he's expected to. But I just certainly know that. How do I put this? I think we maybe mentioned this in a previous pod, that Postecoglou would give him a fair bit of freedom, I think is the best way to put it. And I think he would like to. He would take that freedom as well, Romero, when he could. So it'd be interesting to see whether there's a little bit of testing the waters, pushing the boundaries to see what Thomas Frank will do and things like that, or the club will do. It may not at all. It may just be back right on the day that he's meant to be back. And look, I don't think there's any doubting that he has a real affection for Tottenham Hotspur as a football club. I think we've seen that, and we've seen him turn up in those big games for them as well, most notably in Bilbao. I'm just intrigued to see whether his vision of what his future is lines up with what Spurs' vision of what his future is. I guess we'll find out probably within the next week. We'll start to get a real indication of that. But yeah, certainly as of yet, no new Romero bid. We'll see whether that develops into something else in the coming hours or days.
Yep. In terms of incomings now, Tottenham have had a bid rejected for Mohammed Kudus from West Ham. He's been played links with Spurs over the past couple of weeks. I mean, there's been a lot of talk of Brian Mbeumo this summer, Eze from Crystal Palace, but it appears that Kudus from West Ham will be the player they're looking to sign. And fair to say, one that's divided the opinion of fans. It was fantastic first year at West Ham after his move from Ajax. Last year he struggled. I think it was 5 goals, 4 assists, something like that. But I think it needs to be remembered, West Ham was so poor last season. That Lopetegui appointment was just the wrong one, and then didn't really work for Graham Potter when he came in. But just because he had a bad season last year doesn't mean Thomas Frank can work his magic and then take him back to his previous levels and maybe extract even more from him.
What would you value him at price-wise?
Not 50 million, personally, but I think you've got to look at it from West Ham's perspective. They've sold him, they bought him for 38.5 million from Ajax 2 years ago. Yeah. So they're going to want to profit on him.
It's the same as Romero. It's a similar thing with Spurs. Yeah. Like, why would Spurs take anywhere near what they paid for Romero?
Yeah, I suppose if his numbers were similar to his first year at West Ham, then you'd be going, yeah, we'll take that. But because he struggled last year, then yeah, you can understand why people have question marks over his performances. But I think he's someone who fit in really well at Spurs. When he joined West Ham, basically said he wants to entertain fans. That's what Tottenham fans want. Spurs fans want to be entertained. It's in the club's DNA, attacking, free-flowing football. Kudus maybe can be someone who can bring that to Spurs in the final third.
Yeah, I saw a stat the other day about, isn't he top for successful dribbles in the Premier League over the last 2 seasons, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And, you know, he's an exciting player. And certainly from speaking to numerous agents last week, everyone's been told essentially that's come out of the club, Spurs want a winger. That's it. That's a priority. Every other position can wait right now until they've sorted that out. Seems to be the word coming from the club to various agents and people in the game. So, yeah, I mean, he fits that bill. He does. Obviously, Takai is different. We'll speak about him in a moment. You know, he's going to come in as a more, I don't want to say bargain because that has all different connotations to it, but that's the kind of deal that essentially you wrap up quickly to get it done. But yeah, Kudus. Well, I even watched the pronunciation video of him saying it, the Premier League one, and still managed to say 3 different versions in one there. It's Kudus, isn't it? That's how he pronounces it. We've watched it about 20 times. And he says his Kudus Mohammed, doesn't he? He says it the other way around. So I'd be intrigued to know if that's, it's a bit like in Korean culture, the names are turned around to what we would normally be used to kind of hearing it. But yes, Kudus is certainly, yeah, exactly like you said, really. I think he can be a very exciting player, can also be a bit inconsistent. That often comes with exciting players, to be fair. And I think some Spurs fans, because of the red card incident against Spurs, have decided that he's like a bad egg and he's got an awful attitude or something like that. I think maybe they've got that incident in their head and they're using that as this kind of thing. I'd maybe just see it as he's a fighter. He's just someone that wants to win, kind of thing. I don't think that's a bad thing, and that is kind of was one moment, as it were. And look, if Thomas Frank wants him, it will be because Thomas Frank knows that he's going to work incredibly hard in the system, because you can't not in his setup. You've got to press, you've got to work hard, you've got to tackle up front. He's going to have everything to his game. I think his versatility is a huge thing as well for Spurs, that he can play anywhere across the front three, that you can play centrally as well. When you've got this many competitions ahead, and obviously big competition with the Champions League, to have someone like him with Champions League experience as well from his Ajax days, he does tick a lot of boxes. I agree that I think the price tag is too much from an outside perspective, but then exactly like you said, if you're West Ham, you signed him for that amount of money, they need to sell him to fund essentially their own transfer plans. You're going to look for the most you can possibly get. And I'm sure the public nature of it in the last week or two is probably also a bit of game playing from West Ham and trying to get other people involved as well, because they're going to want the most money possible for the player, again, which is all very understandable. Seems to be the indications are that he wants to come to Tottenham, and they're the side that he's kind of focused on, which is good news for Spurs in one regard. But I've also seen that used in the past at Spurs as dragging it out, waiting to try and get the best price for a deal. Most notably and famously and horrendously with Jack Grealish all those years ago. I still have nightmares over how awfully that deal wasn't done. It was just like there were so many moments where he could have been signed for the eventual bid they put in, and instead they waited and waited, and new money came into Villa, didn't it? And he signed a new contract. So yeah, you need to get players in for pre-season. They do. In an ideal world, there'll be players there, new faces today, starting this pre-season training on the grass with them, but that hasn't been the case. So they need to get, if the winger is the priority, as it seems to be, get that done, get him over the line. I know dealings between Spurs and West Ham are not going to be the easiest. They never have been in the past, which is why there hasn't been a player for 14 years make the move since Scott Parker. So they're going to have to get it done, though, because it's in the best interest of West Ham to get it done as well. They want to get moving on their transfer targets. So, yeah, we'll see what happens over the coming days. I hope they don't faff around with it and it drags on. I hope they just get straight on with it and get to a conclusion, because, yeah, he can be a very exciting player, and it'd be interesting to see what he's like in a Thomas Frank setup as well. And I guess it would mean I think naturally he's better on the right, isn't he? Because it's going to be a lot of people competing for that left-hand spot if it's him and Johnson, we say, for the right.
Yeah, well, this is a good thing for Spurs. There's just options all across the pitch, and that's what you're going to need if you're competing in 4 competitions. Champions League's expanded. It's like the Europa League last year. You've got 8 league phase games now before you then hopefully get into the knockout phase.
And so you've got a minimum 48 games. I think minimum 48 straight away, yeah.
And we saw what happened last season in terms of all the injuries. They just all seem to happen at once. So you're going to need all those players. I think the Champions League experience is massive as well. Having him, I know he's only played about 9 games in the Champions League, but I did a piece last week on the Champions League experience in terms of the Tottenham squad. I think Sonny's out in front on maybe like 55. I think it's Bentancur and Ben Davis in the top 3. Then after that, I think it's likes of Decky, Romero, Solomon, Matisse Tell, Porro, who played between maybe 13 and 16 Champions League games each.
And people forget that about Tell. That was another important part of signing him.
Yeah. And then the players after that, you're looking at Bissouma, Ricci, Dom Solanke, I think Danzo, Pat Matassar, and they played less than 6 Champions League games. So there's not a lot of, Champions League expertise in that squad. And that's what you need if you're going to reach the next level, go to the knockout phase. Ange made that clear in his final press conference after the Brighton game. Need experience, but need Champions League experience. People who've got the know-how of playing in the competition rather than doing what Spurs did 12 months ago and looking at signing these young lads. Yeah. The great players. Lucas Bergwell's going to be a first-team regular at Tottenham now, one of the first names on the team sheet, but he doesn't have that Champions League experience yet, what you need. So I think that is a huge plus when it comes to Kudus.
Yeah, 100%. It's I didn't really think about it in that terms of how kind of inexperienced a lot of the players are. I was trying to think back to the Pochettino years and those runs in the Premier League. I guess they would have the base of some of those players, like even the younger ones like Ericsson, I suppose, and Vertonghen, Alderweireld. That would have probably the spine of the team probably had that experience. Lloris as well. And then they kind of, that's something I guess that Spurs have kind of got, but they are adding to that as well. And yeah, exactly like Postecoglou said, it's not about age, it's about experience. You can be a younger player, but still have played a hell of a lot of football at the highest level.
Because in terms of Tottenham's regular first 11, I'd probably say there's probably half of them have never played Champions League football. Vicario, Van der Ven, Udogie, Brennan Johnson, James Maddison, Jed Spence. There's a number of them there, so that certainly needs resolving.
I forgot about Maddison, of course. Yeah, he wouldn't have either.
No, it's quite surprising actually when you look at the list. In terms then of further transfers, Kota Takai, he's bid farewell to the Kawasaki Frontale fans at the weekend. They beat Kashima Antlers 2-1. Bit of an emotional day, it looks. Played in the wind, went back inside, came back out for a farewell. I think it was given the Guard of Honour. I know you were covering it. Speech as well to the fans.
Yeah, you're making it sound like I was there. I wish I was. I wasn't. The extent of my covering it was watching a very good long YouTube video that was put out, a good 12-15 minutes or so of the entire post-match scenes and what happened, and it was very nice. It was very well done. Yeah, Guard of Honour from his teammates. They're all patting him on the back, slapping on the head, as that'll get him used to Romero if Romero's there when he gets there. Coming out onto the pitch, they showed this really nice, kind of like a tribute video compilation of all of those years that he'd been at the club, because I think he joined them when he was like 7 or 8. He was only a kid when he got there as well. So there was that, and also some very eagle-eyed Japanese supporters pointed out to me, which I then verified and double-checked. And yes, although they haven't said over there where he's going, it's been like an overseas club has been the official line from Kawasaki. In the video, it was pointed out to me that actually one little caption that came up said "To dare is to do," or technically the closest Japanese equivalent, which is "no success without challenge," which I like as well. I think that sounds really nice as well. But yes, I ran it through all the Google online translation tools, and yes, it did come out like that. So that was nice. And then he did like a 2.5-3 minute speech to everyone, which again, I had no idea what he was saying because my Japanese skills are non-existent. But certainly it all looked very, very emotional. And then there was various photos I saw the day after him at the airport. So presumably he was on his way, and maybe we'll see him in the coming days rocking up at Hotspur Way and doing all the various things he needs to do. And yeah, I mean, he's got Asian Champions League experience, AFC Champions League experience, as we've kind of been told by experts, not the same thing. Still good level, but not that top level, and he'll still have to do a lot of adaptation. But yeah, it's a good farewell, and now a major step in his career for him as a 20-year-old Japan international centre back. And actually, the other thing that was pointed out to me, I think since February for club and country, he's played 31 matches. So probably the fact that he's not going to be starting every game from the off might be a good thing in terms of just letting him kind of his body rest. Otherwise, it would be the classic Spurs thing and just play him, and then absolutely destroy him instantly.
Right, in terms of players signing on the dotted line, maybe someone else doing it at Tottenham soon, and that's Josh Keeley, the goalkeeper. You provided an update earlier on football.london.
Yeah. Josh Keeley obviously had a magnificent season, didn't he, at Leyton Orient? That's how loan spells need to go. You know, he was absolutely superb. 16 clean sheets in League One alone. Scored that amazing goal in the FA Cup, the dramatic last gasp goal. Was terrific against Man City. Got praise from Pep Guardiola. So he has had an absolute season to remember, and he is back now, obviously in pre-season training, and from what I understand, there's ongoing talks between the club and him about a new contract, which is great news, and also another potential loan. I think there's a number of clubs, from what I understand, in the Championship and League One looking to take him on loan when that's all sorted out. I think the difficulties for him at Tottenham, and it's such a shame because he's such a terrific goalkeeper and he's got such a high ceiling as well. I mean, he's only 22, is the non-homegrown status. I think that's what absolutely stuffs him, because like Brandon Austin obviously managed to make his breakthrough last season, which was terrific, but he's got this massive kind of chip in his corner in a way that he's a homegrown player and he's a club trained player, and he's the only club trained player in terms of senior players there. So he can be popped into those squads without any taking up of any other spots. Whereas let's say you were to put Brandon Austin out on loan, Josh Keeley would then have to be registered as a foreign player. It's just so mad the way it all works in the European squad. So I think that kind of counts against him in terms of trying to break through in this little kind of trio of very good keepers in Vicario, Kinski, and Austin. But look, there have been many goalkeepers at other clubs that have had to go away first and make a name for themselves, and maybe he'll come back and the situation will be a bit different. But certainly a player to keep an eye on, and I would imagine his value is going to continue to shoot up as well. So I think it's in Spurs' best interest to tie him down, because I would imagine they're going to make a lot of money on him if they ever do choose to sell him. But my hope is that he, eventually becomes part of the squad, and who knows? You never know. He might absolutely wow the new goalkeeping coach in the weeks or two ahead, and they find some way. Maybe they look at it and say, Kinski, let's get him playing week in, week out. We want him doing that, and maybe they keep Keeley around the club. I'd be surprised, but there's another potential way of looking at it.
Yeah, I think the signing of Kinski kills Josh Keeley a bit, because he's now second choice keeper, and let's be honest, Spurs had to sign an up-and-coming keeper rather than having Fraser Forster or another experienced goalkeeper as the number two. So you've got to be looking to the future, and they've got an excellent shot stopper there in Kinski. But Keeley's fourth in the pecking order because Brandon Austin's ahead of him. So and the thing is, you got four players fighting for only one position in the team, and it's one position where there's, never really a lot of change there, unless the goalkeeper makes a number of mistakes. Then you'll see a few changes.
Experience-wise, he's got far more than Brandon Austin. It's the weird thing, isn't it?
Maybe the same amount as Kinski.
I was just wondering that. I didn't want to say it just in case it wasn't.
Yeah, because he's had a full season on loan at Leyton Orient in League One, played half a season in the National League with Barnet. The experience they had before, maybe to Spurs as well. I think Championship's got to be his next port of call on loan. I don't see any point sending him back to League One, because he's done there. You need more experience, and I think the natural step up is the Championship. I think I mentioned it on the podcast probably a month or so ago when Ryan Mason was named West Brom head coach. That just looks the perfect loan move for him, because they lost Alex Palmer, their first choice goalkeeper, in January to Ipswich. So I don't know whether West Brom are going to continue with the lad who was in net towards the end of last season, or look for another keeper. So Keeley could be an ideal one for West Brom.
Yeah, and that's the key, isn't it? It's where there's a space. It's all very easy to kind of say, oh, I'll send this player there on loan. but often it's about whether that club actually needs a player. And when it's a goalkeeper, there's even less spots out there. It's such a difficult kind of position to try and get good loan moves for. But there's a lot of interest, so I'm sure we'll see some movement on that soon.
Yep. One final thing before we call it a day on today's podcast. Tottenham Hotspur women have a new manager. Martin Ho has replaced Robert Villaham at the helm. The new manager has experience. He was assistant at Everton Women, same as Manchester United Women for a couple of years, and then he's been manager of Brann Women in Norway. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does next season, because they certainly need to improve on what was a disappointing season.
Yeah, obviously started so well with Robert Villaham. Obviously, a nice style of football. They got to the FA Cup final as well. Like, that was pretty historic. And then last season was just a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. There were they just didn't really win many games, if any. I'm trying to remember in 2025, in the second half of the season, they were just really, really struggling to get points on the board. And obviously Martin Ho coming in, I mean, he's done brilliant things in Norway. Brann, he took them into the group stage of the Women's Champions League as the first Norwegian side in history to do so. And they didn't even just settle for that. They then, and this was his first season there, they then went on in the group stages to finish second in a group that contained 8-time winners Lyon, Slavia Prague, St. Polten, and they only bowed out in the quarterfinals to Barcelona, who would go on and win the competition. So he's got a terrific pedigree. Did well again in the next couple of seasons with Brann as well. Left them, I think, 1 point off the top of the league. Like you said, has got the Man U experience as well. Your old club, Everton. Your club. Looking at you played for him. Well, a lot of people think you're a Spurs fan now. But yeah, and Liverpool, I think, women's under-21s head coach he was as well. So I listened to his interviews that he's done, little Q&As and stuff he's done. Again, a very good communicator. You can see that. And yeah, hopefully that kind of kicks them on now as well. The women got their own Japanese signing, who's already through the door. As well in Toko Koga from Feyenoord. So they're kind of getting up and moving. That was a couple of days before you would imagine that would have come with Ho's kind of blessing on that. So yeah, big kind of season for them, really. They need to push on now and become a bit of a presence, really, in the women's game. I know they're kind of more relatively newly promoted. They and United, I think, both came up in 2019. I think United then went on to, with Ho as one of the assistant coaches, kind of finished second in the Women's Super League, and now it's on Spurs, I think, to try and make a similar impact. I know there's some real kind of big clubs, big established clubs in that league, but if they can get a style of play going and get some momentum behind them, there's no reason why they can't do well. They've got all the facilities as well, with more to come. So yeah, hopefully this marks the point of an exciting times for the women's team.
That's it for today's latest episode of Gold Guest Talk Tottenham. Hopefully we'll be back later in the week if Spurs give us something to talk about. A new signing would be nice. If not, it'll be back early next week to discuss everything in the world of Spurs. In the meantime, just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. You can either download Sailey in your app store and use our code GOLDGUEST at the checkout to get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase, or online you can go straight to sailey.com/goldguest. For more information, please go to our episode description box.